Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days for today's second video, and we'll extend out beyond that with the extended GFS, which runs to 2 weeks, and also with the CFS V2 as well, which runs to a month. That'll take us pretty much through January. And talking of January, we have released the January month-ahead forecast, so it's a very complicated forecast, very complicated month to forecast this January. We're going for a slightly milder than average month, but we do think there will be cold interludes in there. Cold interludes and milder interludes sort of alternating with one another. Probably getting colder as the month goes along, and by the end of the month we might find ourselves a little bit locked into northern blocking. If that happens, it could be very cold end to January. Have a look at the January 2019 month-ahead forecast and see what you think to that. When I say this video is going to focus on the next week or two. But before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest donor. So, have a new PayPal donor, and our latest PayPal donor is Lawrence Chapman. Big thank you to Lawrence Chapman for becoming Galzobi's latest donor through PayPal. And if you would like to become a PayPal donor for Galzobids, like Lawrence and many others have done, and all you need to do is come to the Galzobids.me PayPal page, and I'm on that page right now. You just sign in to your PayPal account very simply. I mean, you can pledge whatever donation you would like to Galzobids, and you're helping us to fund the website. So big thank you to everybody for doing that. Big thank you to all of the PayPal donors. It really has been a massive success since we started this back in June. There's also, of course, Patreon. So this is the Galzobids Patreon page, and the idea behind this is like an ongoing donation. So PayPal, excuse me, sort of a one-off donation. I mean, you can donate as many times as you want, of course, but Patreon is like an ongoing monthly donation. And if you would like to become a patron for Galzobids, we've got 51 patrons so far. All you need to do is come to the Galzobids Patreon page, sign up for an account, and you can pledge whatever amount of money you would like as a monthly donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards, so it doesn't have to be a large amount of money at all. And by doing that, you become an official patron for Galzobids. You will get a mention in the videos and give you a shout out if you want one, as we do with the PayPal donors as well, like Lawrence Chapman has done today. You'll get a mention in the videos, and we'll say thank you very much at the start of one of the video updates. A few people have chosen to stay anonymous, and if that's what you'd like to do, that's absolutely fine. Just leave a little note with your donation, or when you become a patron, leave a little note and say that you'd rather not have a mention. We'll just say thank you to this anonymous donor. So a big thank you to all of the patrons, a big thank you to all of the PayPal donors, and again a special thank you to Lawrence Chapman, our latest PayPal donor. So big thank you to all of the patrons and all of the donors. Right, getting on with the video then, we're going to start off with this. This is from earthnullschool.net. I'll leave the link to this in the description at YouTube, and it's on the links page at Galzobids. This shows fantastic animations of the atmosphere. This is looking at the zonal winds at 10 HPA. So this is in the stratosphere. We've been talking about the reversal of the zonal winds from westerlies to easterlies in the stratosphere at 10 HPA over the North Pole. And this just depicts what we've been talking about, really, because you can see on this beautiful animation that we have got easterly winds at 10 HPA blowing across the North Pole. So that's the North Pole. Then you can see the outline of Greenland just there, the UK and Ireland down there in the mid-latitudes, of course. Remember, this is at the top of the stratosphere, so this is showing sort of northerly winds blowing across the UK and Ireland, but that's in the stratosphere at the very one of the top levels of the atmosphere. So the wind isn't particularly northerly down on the surface where we are. This is right up in the very upper reaches of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. But going further north, let's go back up to the North Pole. These arrows that we see here coming through the North Pole from an easterly direction tell us that the zonal winds have gone into reverse at 10 HPA. So that's what we've been talking about, the reversal of the zonal winds. Normally these would be westerlies coming across the northern hemisphere and across the North Pole as well, but we can see that something very significant has happened now in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. Thanks to Dwayne for pointing this out at the comment section at Gausswervids. As I say, they do lovely animations at earthnullschool.net. I've not been able to feature this in the videos before because it tends to buffer a little bit while these animations are going. But so far it looks like it's gone okay. So hopefully I'll be able to bring you a few more of these animations from earthnullschool.net. Hopefully I'll be able to bring a few more of those in future videos over the next few months. I didn't know how that was going to go, but I think it's gone okay. Hopefully there's no time lag on the video. I'm sure people will tell me later on. Right, so this is what is happening with the temperature at 10 HPA. The reason that those zonal winds have gone into reverse, of course, is the southern stratospheric warming. This is how things are looking at 10 HPA in the North Pole right now in terms of the temperature. So it is cooling down. We had the southern stratospheric warming, of course, at the end of December. We're into the beginning of January now. Can't maintain those very high levels of temperature for very long. So the temperature is lowering, but of course it's still way above average. The grey line is the trend for this point of the year, and we are way, way above that. So still very substantially warmer than average with the temperature at 10 HPA, just a little bit lower compared to where it was when we had that major warming a few days ago. If we go a little bit lower down to 30 HPA, so let's go 30 HPA, we see that the temperature is continuing to rise at 30 HPA. So now a very significant warming of the stratosphere is taking place at 30 HPA, and that's closer to the troposphere, the boundary level of the atmosphere where we have weather taking place. So now we're somewhere between around -30 and -40 degrees at 30 HPA. I mean, it's still very cold temperatures, but bear in mind a few days ago we was around here. We was very close to between -80 and -70. Obviously a really significant warming event has taken place, a 30 to 40 degree warming event is going on. This may go up a little bit more. It may get to -30 in the next day or so, and then similar to what's happening at 10 HPA, it will start to drop back and begin to lower a little bit more. But this does tell us the way that black line has lifted up very dramatically at 30 HPA. It tells us that the southern stratospheric warming from 10 HPA has propagated down to 30 HPA and will more than likely propagate down from there into the troposphere. And once it gets into the troposphere, of course, that's when we can start thinking about setting up that bubble of high pressure in the troposphere over North Pole, the northern blocking that we're looking for to be the response from this southern stratospheric warming event. And then, of course, we've got to start thinking about pushing cold air out of the pole into mid-latitudes via the northern blocking. This is from weatheriscool.com. Again, it's telling us that the zonal winds have gone into reverse. So a lot of lines here, but I haven't got time to explain. But I just got to say that that is where we are right now in terms of the zonal winds. We're below zero on the scale, which means we know this, what we just looked at from Earth Null School. We know the zonal winds have gone into reverse. This is confirming that. And going to go further into reverse over the next few days and probably stay in reverse. The green lines are the GFS ensembles. So that's taking us around 2 weeks in. And the GFS ensembles are generally keeping those zonal winds in reverse for the next 2 weeks. So that's quite a prolonged reversal of the zonal winds. Sometimes these sort of reversals only happen for a few days and then they'll start to go back into positive territory again. But it looks like that is a very pronounced and prolonged reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. How that compares with last winter is that it had a very strong zonal wind actually through January last year. This is the month of January just here. And this red dashed line is depicting the zonal winds from last winter. You can see that through much of January, actually the zonal winds were pretty strong, up here between around 40 and 20 on the scale. So pretty strong zonal winds, especially in the early part of January. We had a very, very strong Zonal wind indeed. Remember, sudden stratospheric warming happened at the start of February, and what happened with that is, let's just move this up a little bit. So what happened with the sudden stratospheric warming at the start of February is that the zonal winds very quickly collapsed. So it went from there in the opening days of February to around there by somewhere around the middle of February. And then we kept the zonal winds in reverse, a little bit up and down, but generally in reverse through the rest of February. So that was a pretty pronounced and prolonged period of negativity of the zonal winds as well. It wasn't until we got into the start of March that the zonal winds started to go more positive, but even then still a little bit weaker than average. So again, it just confirms that this reversal of the zonal winds that has taken place at 10 HPA is going to continue for quite some time potentially. This is how the temperatures are looking in the North Pole and are forecast to develop over the next few days at 10 HPA. This is from meteoshield.fr. So you can see we've got these yellow and green colours over top of the North Pole. Major warming of the stratosphere, of course, but blue colours indicating the polar vortex at its roots. The cold temperatures at 10 HPA, they're pushed down into the North Atlantic and into much of northern Europe as well. Let's run through and see how the GFS is forecasting things to develop. So we go through to around the 5th of January. This is when it looks like we're going to get a split of the polar vortex. So that's the last thing we're waiting for. Everything else has happened. The temperature has reached a required level at 10 HPA to be considered a sudden stratospheric warming. It's propagated down to 30 HPA, which means it's going to the troposphere. We've reversed the zonal winds. All of that has taken place. The last thing we're looking for is a split in the polar vortex at its roots. It looks like that happens on the 5th of January, albeit it's a fairly modest split in the polar vortex. We have seen more dramatic splits than this over the years, but nevertheless still seeing a split of the polar vortex at its roots around the 5th of January before those blue colours start to get back together again by the 8th of January, by which time we've got another fairly significant warming of the stratosphere taking place at 10 HPA over northern parts of Russia. That's how we look as we go to the 11th of January. Still pretty warm over the North Pole in the stratosphere, and in the extended range we look like that. So still very significant displacement of those blue colours, still really displaced over Canada and North America and over the Atlantic and the UK as well. In fact, there may even be another little split of the polar vortex that's showing up there to some degree. Not sure about that, whether it quite reaches a split of a polar vortex. Possibly it doesn't, but certainly the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere remains displaced right way up into the second half of January, and we're waiting to see what the response is by then in the stratosphere. This is how the ECM2F is looking at the University of Berlin. So this is today, the black cross there depicting where the actual North Pole itself is. So again, major warming of the stratosphere at 10 HPA is ongoing, albeit a little bit less so than it was a couple of days ago. That's how things look on the 5th of January. So again, there's that excuse me, there's that split of the polar vortex showing up with the two lobes of blue, two lobes of deep blue, one going over to Europe, one going over to northern parts of America. A lighter shading of blue and almost sort of sandy brown in between tells us that the polar vortex is just about split there on the 5th of January. That's how things look on the 6th of January, with another major warming of the stratosphere taking place over northern parts of Russia, indicated by those red colours just there. And we just generally keep quite warm temperatures in the stratosphere at 10 HPA, right way through to day 10, which is January the 12th, generally still warmer than average, albeit cooling down. We can't maintain that very warm level indefinitely, but so gradually cooling down, but still above average temperatures at 10 HPA, going down to 30 HPA. That's how things looking right now. Again, significant warming of the stratosphere at 30 HPA is ongoing. It's going to continue up to the 4th and on to the 6th of January as well. That's how we look at day 10. Again, it's gradually cooling down. The temperature is gradually starting to get back to the sort of levels you'd expect them to be at this point of the year, which is kind of like minus 60, minus 70. But even so, still, even up to then, day 10, January the 12th, still generally a little bit warmer than average. Zonal winds by the ECMWF show that we are currently in a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. That's where we are right now, underneath this all-important zero line, and the ECMWF is forecasting that the zonal winds will stay in reverse for the next 10 days. So again, a pronounced reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. At 30 HPA, it looks like whether we get an actual reversal at 30 HPA, it's always a little bit more difficult to do that, but certainly very, very weak zonal winds at 30 HPA. It's not out of the question that they might go into reversal for a little while anyway, a day or two, at 30 HPA as well. So it's all still going on. The southern stratospheric warming has occurred. The zonal winds have gone into reverse. We are propagating this down to 30 HPA. So from there, it's likely that this will propagate into the troposphere. We are very likely to get, at least for a few hours, a temporary split of the polar vortex as well at its roots around the 5th or the 6th of January. So it still continues, and we still wait to see what, if any, effects we're going to get from this. Right, let's do a bit of forecasting. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF here on the top. The GFS, which I'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8 feet, is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. These are the mean flowcharts for the next 7 to 10 days. We can see that with the ECMWF, we've got an area of below average height, pretty much of central and southern Europe, so a deep trough of low pressure is across central parts of Europe in the 7 to 10 day time frame, with above average heights out to the west and the northwest of the UK, and so the jet stream is going something like that. That's pulling cold air down into much of central and eastern Europe. There's another trough by way up here across northern Europe that would again contain very cold air pushing out of the Arctic. So generally it's a cold scene, I think, in the week to 10 day time frame for many parts of Europe. We're close to that ridge of high pressure. We are protected to some degree from these cold surges of air from the Arctic. We're on the periphery of it, but the way that high pressure is going, I think it does look as though that high pressure is retrogressing to me. It looks like it's moving more and more towards Greenland, and so we're not at all far now from pulling down very cold air from the north, actually, by the middle of January on that solution. GFS is very similar, but what it shows is that the area of above average heights is more centred over the top of the UK, really, with that trough a little bit further east into eastern and southeastern parts of Europe. So again, a real surge of cold air in the east and the southeast of Europe with that trough of low pressure, but we're not as close to it as we are on the ECMWF. We have more influence from that ridge of high pressure, which is protecting us to some degree from that northerly surge. Nevertheless, it would only take a very slight adjustment. You would only need to back that high pressure a little bit more towards the northwest, a little bit more towards Greenland, to really start pulling down those winds from the north. So we've got to be watching out for what's going on here by the middle of January. We are very close to some quite potent cold weather, I think, as early as the middle of January. So it's just one that we've got to keep an eye on. These are the GFS ensembles. We're looking at Northampton today, very local to me, and they are trading a little bit colder now, these. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. For the next few days, the upper air temperatures are going to be a bit above average, and actually it'll still be quite cold on the surface, and there is a risk of frost and fog where sky is clear. At the moment, we have a lot of cloud, a lot of low cloud trapped underneath this high pressure, but it does look as though some of that is going to thin out in the next 24 to 48 hours, so probably an increased risk of frost and fog at the end of this week and into the start of the weekend. Now, as we go into next week, we clearly see that there is a cooling trend in evidence here as we go from the first week and into the second week of January. There is a lot of scatter in there. So we've got several ensemble members that are down here around -10 at 850 HPA. They're bringing proper cold upper air temperatures and probably snow as well. But we do still have several ensemble members that are up here much milder. What we can say though is that the GFS ensembles are trending cold, and that's seen by this white line, which is the ensemble mean, now going underneath the red line. So I think the GFS ensembles, anyway, have shifted a little bit onto the colder side of things through the second week of January. We could well have a cold spell creeping up on us here over the next few days. Have to keep a close eye on it. And as far as precipitation is concerned, by the way, just remains really quite a dry scene. So no precipitation up to the weekend. And then after that, we do have some precipitation spikes, but not that many. For a midwinter ensemble chart, that is very, very dry, really. So the dry spell continues. It does look as though this January could be quite a notably dry month, certainly the first half of it anyway. Temperature anomalies are coming out a little bit cooler than average now for most parts of the UK, so slightly colder than average week coming up, as it is for France. Northern Europe, milder than average across much of Scandinavia and down into Germany, and then it's colder again in the east and the southeast of Europe. Generally, much of Europe is a little bit cooler than it has been, though, for the earlier part of the winter. Precipitation anomalies, particularly for the UK and Ireland, coming out significantly drier than average, so it remains dry, but temperatures are going to be quite cool, we think. So this is how the GFS is looking for Sunday, and we're under a ridge of high pressure. That high pressure just a little bit to our south on Sunday, allowing slightly more of an Atlantic airflow to come around the top, so it'll probably be quite cloudy, and there may be some light rain or drizzle in the northwest. Well, then we get this area of low pressure developing on Monday. This has just suddenly sprung up in model output. It could turn quite wet and windy now for Scotland and Northern Ireland on Monday. England and Wales is under that ridge, but it's mild. The wind is coming up from a west or southwest direction. As that low pressure moves across Scotland and out into the North Sea, the high pressure pulls out to the west behind it, and so this turns the wind into the north. Our first surge, or our first shot of northerly wind, therefore, plunges down the northern and eastern side of the country on Tuesday, and that continues into Wednesday. That could well bring wintry showers to northern and eastern parts of Britain through the middle of next week, with the high pressure out to the west, the winds are in from the north, and it will certainly feel cold. Now, this latest GFS run then starts to reach this high pressure over towards Scandinavia. So this is a little bit different to what the GFS has been shown for quite some time. The winds are beginning to turn into the east or the northeast here through the second half of next week. So that's Friday, 11th of January, and we do find ourselves in a proper easterly wind there. It's not a particularly cold easterly, but it's probably cold enough to bring snow showers to eastern parts of the country. And certainly there'd be some really sharp overnight frost as well. There's the upper air temperature, so we're not talking about a beast from the east. We've not got those deep blue upper air temperatures surging across Europe that we had back with the easterly at the end of February, but nevertheless we are in a cold easterly wind there, and it probably is cold enough to produce snow showers on the eastern side of the country. Then the high pressure sort of slinks down over the top of the country, so that cuts off the easterly as we get to Sunday the 13th of January. That would be mainly dry, but frosty, very frosty conditions would be likely there. In the more extended range beyond day 10, we keep an anticyclonic influence for a while, but eventually that begins to move out to the west of the country, and we pull down another shot of northerly winds. That's how we finish up on Saturday the 19th of January, bring cold air back down from the north again. Let's have a look at the upper air temperatures with that one, and again, not desperately cold, but you do see that across Scandinavia by then we have got some really severely cold air sitting across Scandinavia. It's generally very cold just to the north of the UK. The blocking signal is still relatively weak up to the 19th of January. We still have these blue and purple colours churning away here across Greenland and up to the Arctic, so we still don't really have a high amount of northern blocking, but this is a relatively cold GFS run from the high pressure we're under at the moment, bringing dry and quite chilly conditions to a northerly shot through the middle of next week, and then to easterly winds, and then back to frosty conditions, and then back to a northerly again. That is quite a cold couple of weeks actually, and there would certainly be the prospect of some snow if that came off. This is how the parallel GFS run is looking, so this will become the main operational GFS run very shortly. Again, we see that through the middle of next week we get this shot of northerly winds. So this high pressure pulls out to west. This is next Wednesday, the 9th of January. Winds are in from the north, could certainly bring wintry showers to northern and eastern parts of the country. However, parallel run does not set up that easterly wind. We don't reach a high pressure to Scandinavia on this run like we do with the operational GFS. We just keep winds in from a westerly direction, so that obviously is a milder solution as we're going up to day 10. In the extended range, that's how we're looking. So again, we have a go at putting down cold air from the north. Much of that surges through Scandinavia into central and eastern parts of Europe on the parallel GFS run. And that's how we finish up. Again, somewhere between mild and cold. We have got a lot of cold air to our north and northeast, but no real northern blocking signal still up to the 19th of January. So the one thing we're missing at the moment within the model output is signs of genuine northern blocking appearing from the southern stratospheric warming. ECMWF is looking like that, so once again we see high pressure to our south at the end of the weekend and into the start of next week. There's that northerly as high pressure pulls out to the west. On Tuesday the 8th we turn the wind into the north. That could well bring a surge of colder air and wintry showers to northern and eastern parts of the country. Then through the second half next week, the high pressure starts to build back and is trying to ridge up towards Scandinavia as well. And we go to the extended range looking like this. That's how we are at day 10. High pressure generally out to the west-northwest of the country. There's a cold front that's moving southwards here. A cold front is in that position, moving southwards, and cold air is pushing in from the north behind that cold front. So it looks like that's setting up a northerly as we go to day 10, Sunday the 13th of January. Let's just have a look at the upper air temperatures with that one. And we see how we've got quite a lot of cold air sitting up to our north, waiting to surge southwards on those northerly winds. Again, not true northern blocking at this point up to day 10. No sign of any real northern blocking across Scandinavia or the Arctic. So again, it is inconclusive about whether we get northern blocking from this southern stratospheric warming before the middle of January anyway. CFS V2 for next month looking like this. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 3rd to the 9th of January with above average heights, high pressure centered over the top of the country. We know it's going to be mainly dry and cold under that area of high pressure. The true Arctic cold is in the east of Europe with the jet stream going like that. So expect to be seeing reports of snow in places like Italy, Greece, Turkey. Definitely there's a prospect of some snow turning up in those areas, and very cold and snowy through the Balkans and the Black Sea area as well. Then we go through to week 2. It's the 10th to the 16th of January. Again, we see that for many eastern parts of Europe, we've got cold air surging with this trough of below average heights, really cold air in the northeast and the east of Europe. Again, we remain under that area of high pressure, bringing mostly dry conditions and keeping the coldest of the true Arctic air away to our east. But that's week 3, and it does show a change. This is the 17th to 23rd of January. High pressure is setting up close to Greenland then, with below average heights through Scandinavia, and that trough is backing into the west of Europe as well. So this will start to bring cold air into more central and western parts of Europe. A bit of a ridge is starting to build down around Greece, and that could start to bring milder air into the southeast of Europe. So it's turning cold in the northwest, possibly turning a bit less cold in the southeast. And then that's how we finish up in week 4, which is the 24th to the 30th of January. Proper northern blocking feature then. proper northern blocking around Greenland, with the below average heights across much of Central and Western Europe. Again, the cold air will be surging out of the Arctic into western parts of Europe, including the UK, but we have got this ridge in the southeast of Europe that will start to bring milder air out of North Africa into places like Greece, and then up towards the Balkans, and then over towards the Black Sea. You'd start to see things turning milder there, but it is turning much colder, I would have thought, in the north and the west of Europe. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead from the 3rd to the 9th of January. Mild on average Scotland and Northern Ireland, a bit colder on average for England and Wales. That's caused by frost and fog rather than anything truly Arctic or Siberian. Week 2 temperature anomalies, attempt of 16th of January, milder than average in that week for the UK. Better changes taking place in week 3, this is the 17th to the 23rd of January, starting to go a little bit cooler than average for the UK, and then by week 4 it looks genuinely cold then across much of Central and Northern Europe, and the UK is included. Colder than average temperature anomalies there, colder than average in many central parts of Europe, turning milder though, you'll notice, down in the southeast of Europe. Precipitation anomalies very dry in the week ahead, much drier than average, and still very dry in week 2 as well. So dry and not overly cold through the first couple of weeks, although frost and fog is definitely an issue, as particularly in week 1 for England and Wales. Week 3 precipitation close to average. It's turning more unsettled though across central parts of Europe, and as it's turning colder, a lot of that would be snow, of course. And then we go through to week 4 looking like this. So it's drier than average out to the north and west of the UK. That's indicative of a northern blocking signal. Wetter than average through the central parts of Europe. Again, you would be focusing on snow through many central northern parts of Europe with that blocking signal. So the CFS is getting there. It's getting towards significant northern blocking and much colder conditions in the second half of January. We'll see whether this is maintained in JMA Friday tomorrow. As far as the shorter range is concerned, so at the moment it looks like the cold Arctic northerly surges are going to be primarily for northeastern and eastern parts of Europe. But we are setting up a northerly by looking at it for the middle of next week. Probably doesn't last all that long. And then we've got to see where we go beyond that. Do we swing the winds into the east, as the GFS operational run is showing, or do we back wind to the west, as the GFS parallel run is going? As the January month-ahead forecast highlights, the further on we go into January, the more potent these colder surges should become. And there is definitely the prospect there that we may set up some very substantial northern blocking before the end of January, and possibly set up a very cold pattern indeed. That would be courtesy of the southern stratospheric warming. So it's a slow burner, this. Talking about the southern stratospheric warming, there are several weeks now, seemingly, and there's still not much happening within the 7 to 10 day time frame from a northern blocking perspective. But the hints are still there that before this winter is done, we could be in for a very significant spell of cold and snowy conditions. So I know it's been a slow start to the winter, know it's a slow burner, but stick with it, because we could still be in for some really quite significant winter weather, I think, before this winter is finished with us. Right, we'll be back tomorrow with JMA Friday, and of course we'll have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.